The following is the transcript of a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. 24th December 2020, North America. Me. I feel when I walk all the skin of America on my skin. That's how I felt again today. The current of energy and vital fire of the earth that crosses the Andes is divided in two in the territory of Gran Colombia, taking a road through the central and western mountain range of Colombia, heading towards Panama and all Central America, and another through the eastern mountain range towards the Venezuelan Andes that makes up the Antilles from Trinidad and Tobago to Cuba, entering through Yucatan and joining both in Central America in the Father's Ring of Fire. That's where North America begins. I am. The Italian cartographer Amerigo Vespucci was the one who, in the 16th century, catalogued this territory as a new continent, since until then all conquerors, such as Christopher Columbus, considered these lands as part of Asia and India. Hence, Native Americans are mistakenly called Indians. When it was recognized that it was not part of Asia, it was named America in honor of its explorer. The name Americo or America comes from the Latinization of the Germanic Norse name Haim Rich, which means powerful house, or Patria Rica, which in Spanish derived from the name Enrique, and in English is the name Henry. Me. Clearly they chose the name well, for all the riches began to come from the Americas. I would never have imagined that I lived in a continent that could be quietly said Enriqueta in Spanish. I have heard many speak of the name America as an acronym for the Anglicism I am race. What would it mean? I am. Humans came to the Americas by two paths about 20,000 years ago. To the south, sailing between the Pacific Islands through Polynesia until reaching Peru and Chile. On the other side, through the Bering Strait between Siberia and Alaska. Although around the same time, some Atlantean explorers arrived in Central America from the coasts of Africa. For more than 15,000 years, the peoples of the Americas diversified into different climates and geographies, from the Selknam in the far south, tribes that lived naked in near Antarctic climates, to the Inuit in the far north, living in ice houses called igloos. Most spread in the form of tribes, communities led by shamans, spiritual leaders who spoke to nature. But others took the form of nations and even created their states and empires, such as the Tahuantinsuyo, the empire known today as Inca, and the Aztec Empire in Mexico. The Maya created their system like the Greek, in city-states that interacted with each other, and many of them, after the end of their era, moved north, creating the Navajo peoples, Redskins, the Hopi. In some cases, wars occurred between them, and there were many submissions on the part of the great peoples to the small nomadic and sedentary groups. Then the Vikings arrived, and this opened a route with Europe that would leave the way free for others to discover the way in a few years. 400 years later, Europe began to look for safer routes to reach Asia and continue trading with India, China, and Japan, bringing spices, fabrics, food, raw material to the Mediterranean. But due to the instability of the Middle East, some sailors, explorers, and cartographers proposed to surround Africa, which would take a long time. And so the idea arose to throw themselves into the abyss to the west, where perhaps there could be another way to the Asian continent. In this way, Europeans discovered a continent that already had its own human history for 15,000 years. Seeing its potential, they set out to exploit it. But the natives were very difficult to master, and very weak to the diseases common to Europe, so they died very easily. Because of this, they saw no choice but to bring slaves from Africa and European workers. They filled the ports with Africans and the few natives who could survive. Blacks, reds, and whites began to mix with each other, creating mulattoes and Creoles. The area of the expansion of colonization began in a battle of the metropolises for enrichment, which led to battles between empires, dividing the continents like a cake. South America was cut in two by the Treaty of Tordesillas, one part for the Kingdom of Portugal and the largest part for the Kingdom of Spain, which would go from the Colorado River in the viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata to the north of the present-day states of California, Nevada, Utah, and Colorado. France would take its colonies to some of the islands of the West Indies, crossing the entire Mississippi River from Louisiana to the Quebec River in Canada, splitting North America in two, fighting for sovereignty with the United Kingdom, which was making its way throughout the North American East. In creation of the first states, cheap labor began to be brought from Asia, India, China, Pakistan, which made Greater Mexico an Asian settlement. The conflicts between the metropolises led the wars to European territory, weakening their firm presence in the colonies, which led them to begin their independence. First it was achieved by the first island discovered, Haiti, and after her followed the others. In the north, the United States, Mexico, and in the south, Argentina, Peru, Colombia. The freedom of these nations generated republics, which made all the freethinkers of Europe set out to immigrate to the Americas, being now the land of freedom and opportunities. People of all nationalities came to the new countries, of different languages and creeds, seeking freedom. The races began to find their rights, and everyone could begin to live their American dream. All the races began to unite as if they were one, and the three Americas became a kind of melting pot of races of the whole world, living as one. History made this tranquil continent the center of the world's attention. All voices all hands all. Me, and a river walks in my blood, which releases its flow in my voice. I am. The concept I am race refers to the fact that the Americas are the center of unification of all humans, of all voices and their consciousnesses as one. I am one. America is the voice of this being. The North American continent represents the voice of the planet, the laryngeal chakra or throat. The voices of ancient peoples, thousands of years ago, used to come together in Central America, belonging to Mexico, where walkers from the south and north met to discuss the future and their interactions. In the present and last 200 years, the United States and Canada fulfill this role, in which states have become a kind of word to the world. Me. It is very normal for Americans to say that they are Americans without taking into account that all the countries of the Americas are American. I remember a friend from California who said to a girl on a plane from Argentina, "I am American," and the girl replied, "Me too. I was born in America. What country are you from?" And my friend said instantly, "America." And the girl said, "That's not a country, that's a continent. We're all Americans." "Well, I'm American," he said, and the girl asked him, "From which country? Canada, the United States, or Mexico?" My friend looked at me and said, "In my 65 years of life, I have never realized that I never said the name of the country where I am from, and a 10-year-old girl just showed it to me." Sometimes we tend to think that when we talk about America, we only talk about the United States, and we think of the American idiosyncrasy, the American dream of the 30s. However, it is much more than that. I am. There are three beings living together under the powers of states on the North American continent. A wise father, elderly, we call Mexico, with his feet on the Central American volcanoes, his knees in Yucatan, sitting with his tailbone in Jalisco, his back along the Gulf of California, and his right arm on the peninsula, where the left carries him to his heart in Chihuahua, under his head in New Mexico. His crown of feathers, his soul, decorates the Arizona desert, activating his spiritual crown to the heavens in Utah and Colorado. The second being is the great cow. The wise father is lying on the Audhumla cow from Norse mythology, the one that created the universe by melting the ice and discovering Buri, the wise grandfather of all the gods. America is the cow that gives milk to creation, that nurtures opportunity, that is opulent of infinite wealth. His bellow is the song and voice of all his children. His example brought freedoms, rights, art, freedom of expression, stories, music, and everything he touches he throws to the world with propulsion, with strength, richness, recognition, taking voices to the farthest part of the world, to every corner of the planet. The third being is the bull, the ox, represented in Canada. Back to back, the cow and the bull are united, but this one faces north, walking on the ice. Canada is the white ox, who, from the magic of the north and its lights, delivers wisdom to the peoples of the earth. Me. This continent, then, is destined for the message, to give the word of wisdom, by allowing the messages to flow freely, whether they are a song or a cry, and for coherence to manifest itself in order and freedom. I am. And I remind you again, it does not mean that nations and states fulfill their purpose of what that territory represents, because human minds are distorted. Countries maintain in their essence the character of the territory, but in their greed, in their imbalance, they disrupt their being, corrupt its essence, turning wisdom into distortion and truth into lies. For this reason, you are not to judge the earth or its nations, but you are to be righteous in helping them to remember their essence, and so they will know it. Me. If I become America, I will have the strength of the word of the earth. I will be able to take my voice to the world. I am. Contemplate and feel this continent, its films, music, ideas, stories, freedoms, artists, philosophers, natives, sages. Everything that emerges from there will be expansion. Become this earth, and your voice will be heard throughout the cosmos. Me. I am America. I am. The truth will set you free. Me. I am the truth.
My heart